for decades, we have known that Hezbollah has sleeper agents in the United States. This is not a secret. Cops were warned all over America that Hezbollah had sleeper cells, and if we became engaged in a conflict with Iran, Iran would release those people. Pray for the safety of our country and for your congregation, and pray that God gives you discernment to see danger before it starts and to give you the skills that you need to effectively protect the people at your church and your family. And the most important thing after that is remember your ABCs, always be caring.
If you're new or watching this as a replay, welcome. We're so glad that you're here. Please subscribe to Defenders Live on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube, and join our group on Facebook as well. And if you don't want to miss another episode, you can sign up for email notifications at defenders-live.com. Keith Graves is a retired police sergeant serving for 29 years and a 20-year SWAT team veteran with extensive experience in narcotic investigations, training, and leadership. He's also the founder of Graves and Associates, which provides drug training globally. Drawing on his experience and passion for protecting communities, he created Christian Warrior Training to empower churches with the knowledge and tools they need to create a safe and secure environment for their members. Let's welcome Mr. Keith Graves onto the show. Hey, Keith.
Hey, Laura. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, well, this is the second time we've had you on. You were on earlier this year, and it was a pretty big hit. Our audience really enjoyed hearing what you had to say. And you're a man that has an extensive background. You really know your stuff. And I think you really have a heart for serving others. So thank you for what you do.
Thank you. Thanks for having me here.
So I have been watching some of your recent emails, and because I'm a subscriber, as all of you should be, to christianwarriortraining.com. And you sent out some emails recently that were a little bit alarming. So what's the latest news as far as churches go specifically as to the state of what's going on in our country?
Yeah. So the big thing that we should be worried about is ISIS has come out and told their followers to start attacking churches and synagogues. And this came after, because of the October 7th attacks, Israel's now attacking Hamas and Hezbollah. I'm going to make sure I hit all the keywords so that YouTube just totally
annihilates the video. Yeah.
I'm so sorry, but they're upset about this. They've come out and said attack the churches, and then we saw at Lakewood Church in Houston, that's Joel Osteen's church, we saw the lady come in with a rifle, start engaging security. Thankfully, there was only her, and then unfortunately her son got shot critically. He's still alive, but she died. And yes, she was crazy, but she went there because ISIS said so. Was she a real ISIS sympathizer? I don't think so. I think she was just crazy, but she heard the word and she came out for that attack. Then we saw a kid, and I'm in Idaho now. I was a cop in California, decided that was enough and retired to the United States. So now I'm back in the good old US. But here in Idaho, we had a kid, and this was on national news. Kid heard ISIS's call, and he was one day away from attacking. He was going to attack churches Sunday morning, multiple churches. And Saturday, the FBI scooped him up. And so we've seen a lot of incidents like this, and we've had stuff that's been stopped that probably hasn't been publicized. We have the Border Patrol has said there's 400 Tajiks, people from Tajikistan, that right now is a hotbed of activity for ISIS that are unaccounted for in the United States. We have one Afghani that's part of an Afghani, basically like an ISIS group in Afghanistan, that is nowhere to be found. But it's okay. They have court dates in December of 2025 in Texas. I'm sure we can pick them up then, right? But in the meantime, they are all free to fly about the United States. And when you look at churches are getting attacked in Russia, specifically in Dagestan, and when you look at the attacks in churches over there, it's kind of what we should expect here. They're ISIS sympathizers, many from Tajikistan. We have some of them here. And we can kind of expect the same thing. And I did put out an alert because for years, for decades, we have known that Hezbollah has sleeper agents in the United States. This is not a secret. And back in the early stages of the GWAT, back in the global war on terrorism back in the early 2000s. Cops were warned all over America that Hezbollah had sleeper cells, and if we became engaged in a conflict with Iran, Iran would release those people. So over at Christian Warrior Training on our YouTube channel, I did an interview with a Joint Terrorism Task Force agent, retired, who specifically worked Hezbollah in the United States. And he spilled the beans that he estimates there's 30,000 Hezbollah agents in the United States. And he explained how they were going to work, how they were going to get something together. And he admitted it's still a problem. And that if we become engaged in a conflict with Iran, that they would unleash those people. The FBI director has repeatedly been saying that we are at a high risk of attack, that churches, synagogues, and large venues are the largest targets that are going to be hit. And so it's not a matter of if it's going to happen. We know it's going to happen. Everything is pointing us in that direction. Now, that doesn't mean our churches should become bunkers and, we have metal detectors and don't let people in. I mean, you keep your church open and let everybody come worship. It just means you have to have a security team that is out there, and they don't necessarily have to be armed. It's nice if they are. Obviously, you can tell I like guns, right? I train people in firearms and so on. But if you don't have guns, that's okay. We can teach you how to secure your church even without that, right? But you have to be on alert and pay attention to the warning signs so you can stop those attackers from coming in and hurting us. And plus, Laura, we know in the Bible, it says that as Christians that we're going to be persecuted.
Mm-hmm.
You know that. And Christians are persecuted all over the world. You look at Nigeria right now, Southeast Asia. I mean, we're losing lots of Christians every week to violence. We're like Nigeria right now, the biggest thing, they come into a church during mass and start hacking people up, and you'll lose like 20 people in one shot. And we've had a relatively good life in America with religious freedom and really not being persecuted. But what do you see since October 7th? Mm-hmm. We have more vandalisms at churches. We have more threats of attack. Everything's been up. And it's because people are angry about it, and they want to, or, you could look at the decision by the Supreme Court about Roe v. Wade, and people are angry about that, and they lash out at churches. And then we have our own Christians attacking churches that they don't agree with,
Wow.
on top of that. And so it's just a hotbed of activity for us, and I just want to worship. I just want people to leave me alone. I want to go to
Right.
church, worship, learn, go be around my fellow Christians, and I want to be left alone, but it's a dangerous time, and we should pay attention to that.
Yeah, I appreciate your honesty about that. And I do feel as though in the United States, we've been blessed with the freedom to be able to worship, because I do know there are a lot of places throughout the world that that's not the case. And I think many times we take that for granted. So I appreciate you bringing that up. I do want to play devil's advocate a little bit, because I know that there might be some people that are watching, that are listening to what you're saying right now. And they might be thinking, but Keith, I think all you're doing is just fear mongering, right? Mm-hmm. What do you say to those people that have those kind of comments? Because I'm sure you get plenty of those on your channel.
Yeah, actually, I get very few of those. Actually,
really,
most people agree with it, and what I get is they'll say, "My pastor's a pacifist," and what do we do? Well, you listen to your church leadership. If they don't want you to do something, then don't do it. Mm-hmm. And, and I've always told people too, if you don't agree with what's happening at your church, as an example, I used to be Presbyterian. And if you watch what the Presbyterian church has done in the last few years, it goes against what the Bible actually says. And so I've left, I don't agree with what they're doing, so I'm gone. And, people need to do that. Now, it was funny. I did get interviewed by a newspaper in Idaho about Christian Warrior Training and what we were doing. And the report, that news report has actually been picked up internationally.
Really?
Yes. And they've been rewriting the article with nobody's interviewed me, but they've taken my quotes, like Daily Mail did one. They took my quotes, put them in whatever order they want, and write a new article to make it sound like whatever they want. And so the genesis of the original article was churches in Idaho since this Coeur d'Alene incident with this kid that wanted to shoot up churches. What are churches doing? And the police actually recommended that they talk to me about, the training we're doing. And I told them, they were kind of like, well, you're training people to use guns. Yeah, it's Idaho. Everybody has a gun. I want to say no less than 30% of my congregation has a firearm at any given time.
Mhm.
I know, like, we found a rifle in the church a couple months ago. It was a backpack leaning against a wall, and we go over there like, all right, obviously you should be suspicious of. We open it up, and it's an AR-15 in there, and we found who it belonged to. And we're like, dude, like, we actually have a rule that says no open carry and no rifles in the church. And he's like, oh, I didn't mean to break the rule. And I'm like, yeah, go put it in the car.
Wow.
And I'm sure in our parking lot we have no shortage of ARs and trunks. And so what I told him was like, well, don't you think we have some responsibility that because churches are being attacked, that we should train those people so that they know what they're doing and nobody accidentally gets shot, that people are actually skilled at what they're doing, right?
Yeah.
We have the Second Amendment in the United States. If somebody wants to carry a gun, they carry a gun, right? And if they are, I think we have a responsibility. You're in a church full of people. We should train you. And we pull our concealed carriers into the sanctuary, and we run through scenarios and say, you probably thought you were going to do, and we ask them up front, what are you going to do when the guy pulls out a gun? He's across the church. I'm going to shoot him. Really? You think you can hit that guy all the way across? We have a large church. We seat 1,400. We have 1,400 seats in the church, right? I'm like, you think you're going to hit somebody? Now let's put people in between. And then they realize like, oh, I'm not going to do that. No, you worry about your family. If the guy stands up next to you, certainly this is how you're going to engage in a gunfight when the guy's basically next to you, so you don't hit anybody else. And we go through this training to help them. And this is a very liberal reporter that was doing it. She's like, that actually makes a lot of sense. And I'm like, yeah.
Wow.
We have a duty to help them. And then look, you're looking at it through the lens of Christianity in America, where we really don't have any problems for the most part. I mean, we have some active shooter stuff, but for the most part, like, the chance of an active shooter happening in your church is pretty minimal. I mean, it's probably never going to happen, but it's not zero. And if it's not zero, then you should have some kind of a plan. Should you worry about it, fret about it, like put metal detectors up? No, don't do any of that. We can train you to, like, it's all situational awareness, paying attention, right? Looking at, like, every active shooter is going to start in the parking lot because they have to park and walk in. And so the last couple active shooters, they actually parked in front of the church, and then in a place they're not supposed to park, and then got out to do their engagement. So if you see somebody park illegally, you should already be like, why are they parking there? And they go over, hey, can I help you? This is kind of a no parking area. Can I help you? And then all of a sudden they're like, oh yeah, or they decide to start shooting it out. Great, shoot it out right here with me. And because there's hardly anybody here, and let's get this done before you come in, right? And so to train people about when those indicators are going to happen, like, when is it going to happen? What are the indicators they're giving to show that it's going to happen? And that situational awareness to stop it before they come in. A lot of my followers live in areas that you can't possess a gun. California. I know that the new Supreme Court decision says that they have to give you a concealed carry permit. Right now, like in Alameda County, where I was a cop, which is Oakland and Berkeley, they don't want to give you a concealed carry permit. So right now, just to get a permit, you're looking at over a year, and you're looking at paying close to $2,000.
That is crazy.
It is. And when you think about it, like, some guy in Oakland who really needs it because he lives in Oakland, which a lot of you people can conceptualize what Oakland looks like, and however bad you think it is, that is not a clear enough picture for you to realize how bad it is. It is, think Somalia with, like, burning tires in the street. And then maybe we might come close to what Oakland is like. That guy needs a gun, but he doesn't have $3,000. He can barely pay his rent, and so we have these people coming to churches that don't have firearms. No problem. Like, you don't have to have a firearm in a church, right? And there's a whole debate of, do you bring a firearm into a church, right? And we can go back to that in a minute. But for those churches, all it takes is, like, post somebody in the parking lot by the front door. Make sure that the doors, that people can only come into your church where you have it being monitored. Don't have 7 doors open and people coming in from wherever. If you have 3 people to monitor doors, then you only have 3 doors open, and you channel those people in through there so you can keep an eye on situational awareness and watch. You kind of know everybody. I'll give a perfect example. You get an ISIS sympathizer that wants to attack a church. They probably haven't been a Christian. And imagine you going into a mosque. Would you feel awkward? Absolutely. Would you give off signs that you don't belong there because you don't do the little ritualistic things that happen like before you come in, and you're going to notice it? Fine. You may be unarmed, but you come over and go, "Hey, sir, welcome to the church. I haven't seen you before. Can I help you find your way?" Whatever. And then you find out this guy is shady as can be. He's giving, one of the things we teach is pre-attack indicators. Pre-attack indicator of like, he starts looking back and forth. He drops his leg back, gets into a bladed stance. All of a sudden he touches his firearm and he keeps touching it to make sure it's hidden, right? And all of a sudden you see that and you go, "Do you have a firearm on you?" And I want to tell you, as a cop and seeing these pre-attack indicators where they're holding onto the gun, I would drop my leg back, put my hand up and go, "Do you have a firearm on you right now?" And like 99% of the time, you'd have some gang member or some felon, and they're like, "Yeah." Like because, ultimately, like even bad people, it's ingrained to, answer honestly and like, and they weren't expecting that, So like, if, in my church it's a little bit different. We have open carry. We have not open carry, but constitutional carry. Anybody in the state can carry a gun as long as you're a U.S. citizen. And I go, "Hey, do you have a firearm on you?" I'm like, "Yes." Well, he's given me enough things. I don't want him coming into the church. And I have the authority through the elders to say, "You know what? You can't come in today with the firearm. Why don't you go put it away?" And then come back in and you can kind of work it out that way. But if you're in California, right, you may have a rule at your church, no firearms. "Hey, do you have a firearm on you?" "Yeah." You may want to go put that away and come back another day. That happened recently at a church in the South. There was, and I put all this stuff up on ChristianWarriorTraining.com. If you go over there, I put out a newsletter of all the crimes that occur each week at churches. And there's always a crime of violence, every issue. There's always a crime of violence every week. And then we do a live stream where I discuss all this stuff and talk about how to keep crime out of your church. There was an incident where kid comes up, they're acting suspiciously, 3 kids acting suspiciously. They start walking up to the thing and somebody recognizes he's doing pre-attack indicators, holding the gun. And I think what it was they were gang members. Gang members go to church, shocker. And if you want to kill another gang member, because you go to the church they go at, because they go every Sunday, right? And so that's where the attack is most likely to happen. And so they'll carry a gun when they go to church. And then so they start coming in. Some security officer did a really great job and was like, "Hey, do you have a firearm on you?" And he goes, "Yeah." He's like, "Not today, man." Guy goes back, throws the gun in the bushes. Like comes back out and they're like, "No." So they call the police. Police come out, stolen gun. They grab the guy out of church. He's a felon, can't have a gun. He's like this totally bad man. Was he going to attack the church? Man, I don't think he was. I think he's a gang member. People want to kill him, and he was strapped. But that doesn't mean like somebody's not going to attack the church to get him. And then now that's a problem. That's happened a couple of times this year, right? And what are the chances of that happening at your church? Pretty darn minimal. Should you train for it? Yeah, man, absolutely. Don't like sweat it. Just know like, I need to prepare for that, right? And like Nigeria, I got a lot of followers in Nigeria. They're getting hacked to death over there. And they're like, "What can we do?" And I'm like, "Can you have firearms?" "No." "Okay. You're going to put a lookout out in the front and you're going to put another lookout further out. And then you're just going to communicate with each other. When you see trouble coming, do you know what trouble looks like?" "Oh yeah, we know because it's these Muslim extremists that come in." Okay. You see a Muslim extremist come in, give you a little whistle and then usher everybody inside and start barricading the doors. They have machetes. Like, well, I locked the door. What are you going to do? Right. And then start arming people up. Do you have to evacuate? How do you do that? What does it look like? Something simple, like putting 2 lookouts out to give you a warning, to lock the church down, even if you can't have a firearm, goes a long way. Right. I've been looking at all the active shooter incidents. Now, if somebody knows of one, please let me know in the comments. but I have not been able to find an incident where an active shooter actually took the time to break down a door that was locked to go get somebody. Now, certainly there was the Covenant Church in Tennessee where it was a glass door that was locked. So she shot through the glass, ducked under, and then came in. But we're talking about a solid door, locked, deadbolted, and then was like, let me try to figure out how to get in here. They almost always bypass because they know they're on a timeline, right?
Right.
So if you can barricade that door, you're just buying time for yourself till somebody gets there.
One of the things I enjoyed the most about the last interview that I did with you, and something that really stuck with me, was your analogy of the, and I got comments about this too, was the analogy of the person that just bought the guitar wanting to be on the worship team. And they walk in and they're like, I have this guitar now. I can be on the worship team and, play in the band. And I love that analogy as it relates to concealed carriers, because it's like, oh, I'm good. I have a gun on me, right? So I'm good. And but no, that's not the case. But that analogy stuck with me. Could you unpack that just a little bit again? Because I think that's so valuable.
All right. So how this all started, Christian warrior training, how it started was, I teach high level advanced tactics to cops. And we're talking like, I've done advanced sniper, basic sniper. Like I've had people leave my classes and go and get in some major gunfights. And so really good stuff. And I come into church and I'm like, you know what? I've not been a good Christian and I need to like pay it back here. And I have time now. So I'm like, hey, I go to my pastor and I'm like, I want to serve the church. And I'm thinking like the welcoming committee, like, hey, be at the front door passing out stuff. So I like talking to people. And he's like, well, what'd you do? And I'm like, well, I was a cop. And he goes, oh, do you have your CCW, concealed carry permit? I'm like, yeah. Oh, why don't you come on the security team? Laura, that was it. That's how they determined I was fit. And like, no, there's no background check. There's no I had to show my CCW and that was it. And it was like, well, how do you know I know what I'm doing? I know lots of people have a CCW that are horrible. like if you go to the police retiree range where retired police officers have to qualify every year to keep their CCW. And some of these guys come in and it's like, oh man, please stop. Like, can somebody not issue him a CCW? Like, I know you were a cop and you've had a gun for years, but like, you're going to shoot yourself. And we have had cops shoot themselves. But it's like that in private life too. Like people are like, oh, cops should know better, right? It's worse in the civilian world, And so I try to professionalize it. And like, hey, we got to have interviews. Like we have an interview going on right now for one of our prospective candidates, right? We have a background check. Yeah, you were a cop. That's great. What kind of cop were you? Were you a good cop, bad cop? You have the sort where you could have been an admin guy that was just a public information officer. Like what did you do, right? You were in the military. Awesome. Were you like, we have one guy's a Navy SEAL, but like we've had other guys are like they were clerk typists or a cook. Like they come in all different sizes, right? And I'm like, we have to have some kind of a certification process. And I know it's a bit of hyperbole, but one of the things I said was like, look, we're the only people in the church authorized to carry a gun and shoot people. And they're like, right. Well, we don't authorize you to shoot people. Like, we get what you're saying, but like, can you tone it down? And I'm like, well, but do you see my point? Right.
Yeah.
And one day I got mad because I was in a meeting and we were talking about worship team and they started talking about all the people that they wash out of the worship team because they can't sing, they can't play. And they have this whole, like, you go on stage and you play with everybody, like you play with one person and you like play and play the guitar, play the piano, do whatever. Okay, you're good enough. Now we're going to play with the band or, the choir or whatever. And they had this whole step process. And I sat there and I'm like, it is harder to get on my church's worship team than it is to become a guy that carries a gun to protect the church. I can't believe that. And they have more practice. They have more practice, more training, more everything. It's like, come on, really? It's easy. It's harder to get on the worship team than our team. And it should be the other way around, right?
And you said that one of your most like proficient, best person under stress or like calmest decision maker is like an older woman on your team. Isn't that what you said?
Yeah.
Grandma. Hey, yeah.
Hey, she's a grandma. She does like we're going to do active shooter. and we're going to film active shooter next month. And I mean, I've got an AK-47 with overpowered blanks that when I shoot that, it looks, sounds exactly like a real AK firing. There's no, like some of the guys remember with the military blank adapters that sometimes they malfunction. You got to keep clearing it and you kind of lose your rhythm. And it's not that way with this. I mean, my role player is going to come in, just pop, 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 and just start laying it down. And people, it's called stress inoculation. We're trying to get them to experience an active shooter event right now. So, and they feel it. So when it actually happens, there's not that, I mean, there is some initial shock, but I've been through this before and I can move forward.
Yeah.
I'm going to film Peggy because it's awesome.
Yes, do.
It's awesome. Like I think I think we're the same age, or maybe she's a little bit older, maybe just like 2 years or so, but she's never been a cop. She just practices with her firearm and she pays attention at training.
Yeah.
And she goes in there and just like engages and is leading people and is like, yes. And then I've got people that work for some of the biggest police agencies in America that are performing more poorly than her. Yeah. Why? Because I'm a cop. I've qualified every year for 36 years. What do I got to go to your qualification for? What do I got to do? I've been through all this. I've been in a shooting. I've been in 3 shootings. I've been in an active shooter. I've done this. Yeah, but you haven't done anything in 10 years. Mm-hmm. And you haven't kept your skills up. Peggy, the grandma, is training all the time. She dedicates a certain amount of ammunition. She goes out and she hustles. And it shows, right? When I first showed up, I was the same way. When I retired, I love guns. But when I retired, there was a decompression period because I was on SWAT. I was shooting like thousands of rounds a month. And when I retired, I was like, man, I got to take a break. And I just enjoyed life. I went fishing. I did all the things you're supposed to do. And then I got bored, right? But fishing, did all the things, traveled. And I did not do serious shooting. Like I would go out and plank with friends and stuff, but I didn't do any serious defensive shooting for 2 years. And then I showed up at my church and you got to qualify. And I'm like, all right, whatever. I did not practice. Laura, it's the one and only qualification in my entire life that I ever failed. Mm-hmm. And I failed because I wasn't practicing. I was that guy that wasn't practicing, wasn't doing anything. And I was like, oh, this is horrible. So I got together with some friends that we used to do all sorts of cool stuff, hostage rescue, all that kind of stuff. We found a place to practice. We got a shoot house and we just went out to the desert in this shoot house and we just practice. I got my skills back. I'm back to training people again. So I don't lose my skills. I learned my lesson, but you have to keep nobody's going to come on the worship team and start playing a guitar if they haven't played a guitar in 3 years.
Yeah.
Because there's some practice that has to keep that go. So it is easier to get on the safety team than it is the worship team.
I think that's one of the best points you could make. And I want you to tell Peggy for me, a woman came up to me. I think I was at a Girl and a Gun national conference, but I could be mistaken. A woman came up to me and said, because of what you had said on my show, and you talked about Peggy, that she's now part of her church security team.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's exactly what we want. It doesn't.
Yeah.
This is even better. You guys can go on my YouTube channel and watch my interview about adaptive shooting techniques. I have a guy that's in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
And that guy, we went to go clear a room and I was like, guy in a wheelchair? Let's see what you're going to do, man. Let's see what it is. He was with Peggy and they had to clear a room, but you had to go this long hall. They moved together as a team. And as he was wheeling, he had his gun out, right? So he's literally got his gun out and he's wheeling and it's drinking off. He goes and does. It was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. And when he hit that door, when you go into a door, you'll say, I'm going to come through this door. You want a button hook or you want to go, kind of hug the wall, depending on what the room looks like, but you got a rhythmic way to get in. He hits that wall, goes straight down exactly like you're supposed to. I didn't teach him this. He just did it. And I'm like, dude, I was literally running to keep up with him. And
really?
I've since gone to the range with him. He'll do that. It's not motorized, man. He's all powered on his own. He can hit what he's aiming at when he's going that fast, right? It was so good. I filmed it. And then when cops can't do it right, I pull up the video. I'm like, watch this guy in the wheelchair. He's doing better than you. Check it out. Did you hit that wall? The guy in the wheelchair is doing it. Why aren't you doing it? Right.
Yeah.
And I love doing that. Right. But like, it doesn't matter. Right. Like, people are like, oh, it's got to be a big guy from the military or the police department. My two best people, wheelchair grandma. Right? Tell me like, it doesn't matter, and
No,
I
doesn't.
did a video with him because I was like, I don't know how to train you to shoot because I've never trained anybody in a wheelchair. Like, but he can be a trainer. And that's why I'm asking him, like, your trainer quality, what are the things I have to worry about? And he started telling me all these things like concealed carry, that it will rub his side raw and he won't feel it. And then he'll be bleeding and not know it. And it's like,
Wow.
think about that. So we got to think about where to put your gun on your wheelchair. Right. And, and he's lucky. He's got a wheelchair. He can carry a Glock 34, like big old long. He can carry a Staccato, XC on his wheelchair, and it completely fits and is normal, but it doesn't matter who you are, man. Just go out, practice tactics. Like, here's the other thing. I'm doing a thing for Christian warrior training. It just comes down to time. This is probably, everybody talks about what a great gun this is, right? This gun is, I didn't pay this much, but if you pay retail through the store, it's about $5,100.
Wow.
Okay. Thank you, YouTube. Hit like, subscribe. The algorithm likes it. I'm using all my YouTube money to buy stuff like this because it doesn't impact the family budget. That's my fun money. So do the same thing to Laura. Okay. So I think she probably spends hers on her family though. But so I'm going to do this versus a dagger, a Palmetto State Armory dagger that I bought one for $250. And I'm going to shoot both of these. Okay. Yes, that's a better gun. Okay. But if you have no training, why are you buying a gun like that? My point is, if you have no training, pay $250 for a dagger, spend about $2,000 on ammo, and spend another $2,000
on training. Yeah.
And you still have $250 in your pocket. And then once you get that training, and after you practice regularly, then go buy that nice gun, right? You got to get so many people buy all these fancy guns and don't do any training. My best people are the people that put themselves through shooting courses. And like a shooting course that doesn't know about just shooting, but tactics and shooting both together, right? Training.
Yeah. And you don't have to turn into a total training junkie. If you can just commit yourself to one or two really solid training classes per year, and then keep up on your dry fire in between and go to the range once in a while, start competing, doing some stuff here and there. You'll stay up on stuff and keep your mind engaged too. Like, go out and seek new information and don't just think you've got it all figured out, because there's always something new to learn.
So good point. So about like dry firing. So empty gun. Whoops, there we go. Empty gun, right?
I was wondering because I saw the hammer was.
Oh, yeah. So honestly, what I do is I make sure it's clear, right? And so this is all clear. I practice clearing my house. Right? There's no way that you're going to do anything in this house because I've cleared this house so many times. I know every angle, every corner. And what I do though is I practice once a day going through. Now, the best thing that you can do is buy the Mantis training system, the one with the laser in it. I have that actually in the garage right now because I practice dry firing every day with a Glock 17 that I have the Mantis in. And I practice and it makes you compete and do all that. And I do that every day. It's been making me a better shooter. The other thing it does too is like my son will come over. My son's older. He's like 27, 28. He's going to be so mad. I can't remember exactly how old he is. I think he's 27. No, maybe he's 28. Dang, I can't remember. So he'll come over and he'll post like different targets. And then I come through and I clear and I start, and you can shoot and then you can see what the laser hits. And you go, oh, I would have hit him here or whatever. And I just practice that. And then I'll move the targets for him. then he comes over and clears, right?
Wow.
And we just keep doing that. And like, it's so funny because my wife the other day, she's got her coffee, she's sitting there with her coffee, with her iPad, looking at the news. And I come through with the AR, with the laser, and I come through, slice the pie, look, come through, and she's drinking. She doesn't miss a beat. She's drinking. She's looking at the iPad. She's like, why is this normal in our house? She just like, Keith's coming through with the gun, clearing the house. It's just the way it is, man. Right?
A day in the life.
Exactly. Right? It is what it is.
That's so funny. I love that. So let's finish up here with something you told me before the interview, which is that you're going to be a keynote speaker.
Oh, yeah.
Tell us about that.
So let me look at that. So Jack Hibbs is a pretty popular pastor down in Southern California in Riverside at a church called Calvary Chapel. And it's on, September 24th from 8 to noon in Chino Hills, California. Right now, I think there should be today about 300 people registered. But it's a security directors meeting for area churches. If you contact the church, you might be able to, sign up there. And I'm just going to go in. I'm going to talk with Kelly Moore, who's the director of security for that church. It is a very large church in Southern California. I mean, their online community is ginormous, but I don't know how many seats they have, but I think it's like a stadium. Like,
Wow.
I've been in some pretty big churches, but from what I hear, this might be one of the biggest, right? Anyway, so I'm going to go to his church. I'm going to speak with Kelly Moore, who's their director of security, and we're going to talk to Southern California area churches about the threats to churches in America, what they can do to prepare, how they would do that, some of the things that they can do. We'll talk about everything from about communications and how you can communicate with your team, like radio wise, very cheaply that you can do right now. We're going to talk about the ISIS threat. We're going to talk about the lone wolf. The lone wolf threat is the biggest problem right now.
What do you mean?
So lone wolf is like that kid in Coeur d'Alene or the lady at Lakewood church in Houston, where it's like, oh yeah, man, ISIS told me to attack. So their crazy brain is like, yeah, I'm going to attack, or they just wake up one morning and the voices tell them to go attack the church, right? Like we had a kid, not at my church, but I'm in a pretty big church. There's another church down the road from us that's as big as us, like seats like 1,500, 2,000, per service. And they just had an incident where a young man in his early 20s, just walked up to the stage and is standing there during the initial, announcements. And the pastor is finally in front of like 2,000 people. He's like, "Can I help you?" He's like, "I have a word from God. I need to speak with you." And he stands and he starts getting on the stage to go address the audience. It's like, no, they direct him off. Well, to me, it sounds like the onset of schizophrenia. Schizophrenia starts for a lot of people in the early 20s. And you look at him, he's clean, he's normal, he's a working kid, he's got a construction job, he all-American, you wouldn't even recognize him. What his voices were like, I just have a message from God and I need to tell other people. What if the message was from the devil saying I need to kill everybody in the church? Because there are people that are schizophrenic that have these evil messages like that, right? That's that lone wolf that we need to worry about, right? Mm-hmm. And they hear the siren song from ISIS or Hezbollah or whoever. And, the Hezbollah threat, yeah, man, if we go to war with Iran, you have got it. Like I always end my shows with remember your ABCs, always be carrying. I'm telling you what, man, you should be carrying all the time. But if we go to war with Iran, which it sure doesn't look good, does it? When we start putting American bombs on Iran, and they're already been bombing us and doing other things to our troops in Syria and Jordan, in Iraq, 100%. Like you need to worry about those Hezbollah sleeper people coming out and wreaking mayhem, and you need to be ready, right? And so it's those lone wolves are the biggest problem. Second up would be if we go to war with Iran.
That's really good information because I don't know how many people are really keeping up on it, and you are like the go-to guy for all of this, right? So
I guess I am now.
Yeah, I know you didn't plan it that way.
I'd rather be known for something really cool, like, oh, he's the best, deliverer of a sermon ever, or like, like something. No, man, I'm the doom guy telling you how everybody's going to die if you don't do something. Right?
No.
And I do what I worry about is because like look over at Christian Warrior between the newsletter has 25,000 followers. The YouTube channel has 93,000. Which do me a favor, go over and subscribe because I'm trying to get to 100,000. There's a little bit of vanity in me that wants the plaque that you get with that. And I don't know.
Oh, is it 100,000 when you get the plaque?
Yeah.
Oh, you need one of those.
I know. I want one. I hate YouTube and I hate everything they represent, but damn, I really can get my message out of there, right?
Hey, well, let's help him out, guys. Let's go over there and subscribe.
So the thing is, like, when I put that out, like, I'm getting 1 million to 2 million views every month between the two platforms, right? And it freaks me out when I talk. I don't want, like, the message I was just telling you guys. I don't want you to be like, all of a sudden go, oh my God, we got to put up metal detectors. We got to lock the doors. You got to have a pass to get into our church. No, absolutely not. Our churches should be open. We want people to come to Christ. As the world gets worse, more people will come to Christ. Because they know, like, they grew up as a Christian and drifted away for whatever reason because they listened to all the crap that's on TV or whatever, or they TikTok or whatever. They're going to come back. We need those doors to be open. We need to be loving, welcome with open arms, help them. And when they come up, it's like I tell people I'm an enhanced greeter. Yes, I work safety team. I come up and I'm like, "How are you?" Like, this one lady came in. And she was fixated that our youth pastor was going to kill the children and he was possessed by the devil. And when she came in, it was very obvious something about was happening. She came in the middle of the service, went straight to the bathroom. And it's like, ooh, man, is she preparing? Right? Because like, it's a little weird, right? Come in the middle of the service. Some people come late, right? They got their Starbucks. They had time to get Starbucks, but not enough time to get your butt in the seat, right? And then when she comes out, you can tell she's on mission. She's looking around, all over. And I'm like, being a cop in the Bay Area, I'm like, man, she's mentally ill. You can see it. And so I'll go up and it's not like, hey, mentally ill lady, get over here. Like, you're not going to do that. Right. But, what if she wants, like, what if she's like, I'm possessed. I got these things in my head. Yeah, no problem, man. We'll take care of you. Right. But when I walk up, I'm like, hey, ma'am, how are you? I'm Keith. I'm with the church. And she goes, I know you're on the security team. You need to arrest, like, whatever. And I'm like, oh, I'm not a cop anymore. I can't arrest anybody, but let's talk about that. Why do you think? And she started getting amped up and I'm like, this is bad. Like, this is a person that's going to stab our pastor. Right. And she's like, I'm just going to leave. Awesome. No problem. Let me walk with you to make sure you find your way out the door, even though it's right there. Right. And I'll walk with her out. I grab her license plate on the way out and call 911 to say, crazy lady just came in. And then come back and turns out she's on parole for abusing children.
No kidding.
Right. And so I call the parole officer to be like, hey, man, heads up. She came into the church. We're a little worried. Can you talk to her? And, do we want to pray with her? Do we want to help her? Of course we do. But there's also a lot of red flags there.
Yeah.
That she's going to cause damage within the church. Right. And so we want to weed that out. Right. And I worry about that constantly. Like, I don't, like, even myself, I self-check, like, I basically threw the lady out. I mean, she left on her own will, but I wasn't welcoming. Right. And so I call a lady who I know who's like, I call her church lady. She reminds me of the church lady from Saturday Night Live. And I mean, like, she is like the ultimate church lady. I'm like, she's like my second mom, so I'm like, all right, I got to talk to you. This is what happened. She's like, and she works in the homeless community with mentally ill people all the time. And I was like, am I wrong? And she's like, no, you have to protect the church and you have to protect everybody else. She's like, look, I like asking them, is it God talking to you or the voices in your head talking to you? I was like, really? I could use that for the last 30 years as a cop. And you tell me now when I'm retired, right? Like, that was one of the greatest things I heard. I'm like, oh, and I've gotten to use it since, right? They're like, God, God's telling me to come here. Hold on. Is it God talking to you or the voices in your head? And this person was just like, I don't know. And I'm like, okay, well, let's talk about it. Right. Because we want to make sure you don't do the wrong thing. Right. So let's talk about this,
That opens a door, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just don't want you guys, like, so many people are going to see this. I don't want you to freak out and lock your church down. Keep your church open.
Yeah.
Love everybody. Welcoming arms. Just keep your head on a swivel.
Yeah.
And train.
Yep. And I think the Bible talks all about that, right? It talks all about, love everyone, but also be prepared, not only physically, but spiritually
Yeah.
to put on the full armor of God and do what you need to do to defend yourself and others. And I think that that's very biblical. So that keynote speaker thing that you're doing, is that going to be broadcast anywhere, or do you know?
All right. So it is, but it's like I asked them for a secure link because I'm showing video from an active shooter.
Oh,
So yeah, there's stuff on there that if they did it on social media, they get banned really quick.
right.
So
Right.
I show a video from New Zealand of an active shooter incident in a mosque, and it's got
Mhm.
great learning points in it. It's long. It's about 15 minutes long, but it shows him actively killing 45 people, and
Wow.
it's been banned in multiple countries, including New Zealand, to where if you're in New Zealand and have this video, it's a 15-year prison sentence for
Are
having it.
you kidding me?
No. And I have a huge, because I go to New Zealand every year,
Wow.
to do law enforcement type training. I have tons of followers in New Zealand, and so I had to. If you go over to christianwarriortraining.com, if you're a paid subscriber, which I keep almost everything open, I very rarely paywall anything. I paywalled this one only because the video's banned in so many countries, and I'm trying to, like, by putting a paywall on it, the bots don't see it, and people
Mhm.
they're like, I want to see this, see what you're talking about. Oh, you've got this gruesome video. We're going to come after you and try and get you banned and all that.
Right. Right.
But that video, I'm going to show that in this class that we're doing to say,
Okay.
like, if you can't watch this, then you shouldn't be on a safety team,
Mm.
because this is what's going to happen. And you need to be ready. This is what we're preparing for, is this lone wolf coming in and killing 45 people. And are you ready? Have you trained to stop them? And like, I keep telling people, they're like, what's the best gun to carry at church? The biggest one you can find. There are times that I can, in the wintertime in Idaho, you're in Montana, so
I know.
I can conceal this in the wintertime.
Mhm.
I carry this in 2 mags, right? In the summertime right now, I'm just wearing a t-shirt, or like an overshirt buttoned up because I'm in church. A little bit more difficult. I got to go down to a Glock 19. But I carry the biggest one I can, because when that person comes in, they're going to come in with something, and I'm going to so I train undercover cops. I got squirrel brain. Sorry. So
It's all right.
I train undercover cops, and I always ask them, like, who's been in a shooting, and like it'll be a lot of people, and I'm like, who was undercover in that shooting? And undercover cops like carrying the tiniest gun they can find.
Mhm.
Right? Not me, man. I've been searched during drug buys. No, what are you doing? They're like, we're going to search you. And you ain't going to like what you're going to find. You got a gun? Absolutely. And they're like, why do you have a gun? I don't know who you are. I need to protect myself. And every time I get this, like, oh, yeah, right. Okay. No problem. Come on. And then we go do the drug buy, right? So cops, though, the undercover cops worry so much about that. They carry these teeny guns, like 380, like a snub nose 38 in their front pocket or something, right?
Mhm.
And I'll ask them if they've been in a shooting. I'm like, what gun did you have when you were in that shooting? And they're like, Walther PPK, a Glock 43, not even a Glock 43X, just a Glock 43, right? And I'm like, okay, what do you wish you had? I wish I had a Glock 34, like the big one. I wish I paid $5,000 for a Staccato XC. I wish I paid for, like, whatever. Like, they're naming off all these big guns. There's not one person that was like, oh, I was satisfied with what I had.
Right.
That guy comes through the front door of your church and starts blazing away. I want the biggest
And
gun.
you've got an 8-round magazine.
There's a video that I show for my cops, and I've talked to this cop. It's Huntington. I think it's Huntington Beach, California. It's a motor cop, and it's video from the police helicopter circling overhead. He's taking off some bank robbers by himself. Cop does a great job. Is he pulls him over? They start engaging him. He drops the motorcycle, takes cover behind the motorcycle, uses it for cover. He's got a 1911 with 8 rounds. I'm not a fan of the 1911. Okay. He comes around, and you just see him, bap, 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 drops a mag, goes in, bap, 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 comes through a third mag, goes through a third mag, drops it. And you could see this on the helicopter video. He drops it, goes like this, and then just goes, I'm out. And they're still shooting at him.
Yeah.
So what
But
gun?
then the other argument, though, is anything better than nothing?
Oh, anything is better than nothing, right? But
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. My church has everything from guys that have no money, but a lot of them are very wealthy and very well off. And when we go to range, they'll have like some cheap gun, a Canic, like whatever. And it's like, okay, why do you have a Canic? Oh, it's like a Glock, but cheaper.
Canics are cheaper than Glocks?
Yeah, for the most part. Yeah.
Huh,
Right.
I didn't
And
know
it's
that.
like, and I know I'm gonna get I know I know everybody's
Yeah,
gonna,
one of my 2 of my viewers I know for sure are Canic fans, so be
okay.
careful.
All right. Hear me out, right? Like it's a Glock, but cheaper, right? Okay. So you're willing to get something that's not as good, right? The Glock, there's a reason why 75% of police agencies carry a Glock. There's a reason why all of our special operations forces carry a Glock because it has been in so many gunfights, it has been in so many wars, and has proven itself. I have a Glock right now. I literally have about 80,000 rounds through it.
I am not a Glock fan. I'm just being honest.
All right.
I get your point though.
I am not a fan of Glock. I think there's better guns out there, but that is one that
Reliable.
wins fights over and over and over.
Yeah, it's reliable.
Right?
Yeah.
And then, so what I throw out to people is like your ammo selection. What ammo do you have? Oh, I use a reverse hollow point. How many gunfights has that reverse hollow point been in? Do you know what's going to happen when it goes through a big Tuffy jacket in the middle of winter?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what it's going to do after it goes through like glass? Do you know what it's going to do through like all these different things? Why are you using an unproven round, right? Hornady Tap, it doesn't matter what it is, like, but I'm using as an example. Hornady Tap has been dumping people left and right, and it's been doing a really good job at it, right? Mm-hmm. There's several other ones, Spear Gold Dot, right? I carry Spear Gold Dot in my guns because the ballistics look good, but also it's been in a bunch of gunfights and it's performed superbly well, right? Mm-hmm. The testing is there. People are buying guns that have not been in a bunch of gunfights. They're using ammo that hasn't been. And then what's funny is people will argue with me, and they're like, "Well, you're just a Glock boy." No, I mean, I have like a bunch of staccato. I like. All right, but here's the thing. Like, here's the problem with this. If one of the things that we do is we do something called the build drill, right? So you draw and fire 6 rounds really fast. I'm going to show in this class. I'm going to show an active shooter video, which you guys have all seen. A church in Texas where a guy shoots 2 people and the guy from the back with a 357 SIG goes boom and does a headshot from like 45 yards, right? Does a great job, right? Here's the problem. It's like you've got to now draw and fire as fast as you can. Sometimes because it's got a grip safety, when you do this drill, it's imperfect grip, 6 rounds as fast as you can in the A zone. You want to be sub 2 seconds. Sometimes I don't exactly hit that. Because
at 7 yards?
Yep. And I have an imperfect grip. And sometimes I don't hit this. Probably not it's a fun gun to shoot. Great range gun. I know a lot of cops are carrying this. I can tell you right now, when we do SWAT competitions, the agencies that have this usually don't shoot as well as we do because of that grip safety and then also the thumb safety. And it does shave a little bit of time there, right? Mm-hmm. And so what I'm saying is like people will just be like, oh, it's a Glock, but cheaper. Okay, look, man. All I have to do with a Glock is pull the trigger. Sometimes I could drop it in the mud and it's still going to fire, right? Here's the other thing. If one of my friends got shot in the city I work in, it wasn't one of our cops. He was a highway patrolman. He's on the freeway, gets shot by a guy. He lost function of some of his hand, okay? So you get shot in the arm and then now your thumb doesn't work anymore because your tendon's been shot. But you can still grip this pistol. But my safety's on. Yeah. And now it's like, all right, but I can't use my thumb to press against it to do, like, I'm having these problems. With a Glock, I can literally like hold and then like, there's no grip safety, there's no nothing. And you can just like, literally you can hold it like this and it'll fire. Right. And so, see, how do we even get down this track? I'm so sorry. Your comments are going to be fire of everybody trying to say why the Canic is the best gun that ever appeared.
Oh, you are just stirring the pot. That's what you're doing. Everything you're saying, I'm like, oh man, going down this rabbit hole and then that one, and everyone has an opinion. So especially
Oh
when you
yeah.
go into like, what's the best gun or ammo?
But here's the thing: it's an educated opinion based on seeing officers being involved in a shooting
yeah.
and seeing people get shot and then having to deal with that. So I'll ask people like, well, you don't know what you're talking about. Well, have you been at any formal training ever?
Mm-hmm.
And they'll answer no.
Oh,
But
I
then,
know. I remember how this started. I said anything is better than nothing. That's what I said.
oh, that's right.
Because we were talking about an 8-round magazine or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you're right. Anything is better than nothing. But why even go down that path to begin with? Like,
Right.
make an educated decision, right?
That's just part of being prepared. Like,
Yeah.
you're making choices all the time in other parts of preparedness in your life. I mean, would you just go out and buy the cheapest thing you could find if it has to do with saving your life or someone else's life? Probably not. But do you need the most expensive, most grandiose thing? No, probably not. So,
Well, and I'll give an perfect example. One of the guys on my team has no money at all. Like, he's got nothing. Okay. We have one guy that lives in his car in the church parking lot, right? But they're on the safety team. They have a lot of value for the safety team. They're doing a great job. They can't afford a gun. I'm going to buy one for you. And what I do is I buy a used law enforcement trade-in Glock. It cost me $299.
mhm.
And yes, is it well used? Absolutely. But the police department had an armorer that kept it in good, ready condition. And then I'm also a Glock armorer. So when I get it, I'm not a Glock fanboy. I'm a realist, right? When I get that Glock, I go through it, make sure it's functioning, and I go, here you go, man. Like, don't buy a high point. Don't buy any of this other stuff. Like, high points have shown up to church security, not mine, but in America, people have shown up for qualifications with a high point.
I just had an idea. We should do an entire show just talking about different guns, and if they were vehicles, what vehicles would they be? Isn't that a great idea?
Yes. Oh, it's going to make everybody mad.
I know.
It's so angry. Look, the Glock is a Honda Accord. It's not sexy, right? It's not sexy, but you know what? It's comfortable. It'll get me to where I'm going. If I crash, it's going to protect me. It's just not going to get me the chicks, right?
It's not a Lamborghini.
All right. This is the Corvette,
Yeah.
right? But you know what happens to Corvettes? They break down all the time.
They're not good in mud either.
Sometimes, no, not good in mud, and sometimes they're not reliable. But dang, it looks really nice, doesn't it?
Yeah. See? This is a great analogy. I think there could be a whole show devoted to this. It would be fun.
Oh, your comments. See, the things that when people go to the comments, the algorithm loves it. And the more they battle it out, people are like, you should delete that guy's comment. No, man, he's feeding the algorithm. More people are going to see my video now, right? And more people see the video. Like, it's not about like I'm popular on YouTube. It's definitely not that. It's that I have a message. I want people to hear it. And the more people hear it, the better off we are.
Right. Totally agree. You're really good at that too. I could learn a lot from you, Keith.
Oh no, man! I would love to be able to reach more people. I mean,
well, we're trying.
Yeah.
We'll
make it happen.
Thank you for your heart, for your time, for your knowledge. I feel like, could I just have you on like, a couple times a year, every year? Could you just be a regular that comes back? I would really love that.
If they want, you got to put in the comment. You gotta like and subscribe.
Oh,
we're here, right? Because every little bit thing like that helps. Leave a comment. Let us know if you want me to come back or not. You're gonna hurt my feelings if you say no.
I think everyone would love for you to come back. And controversy is good sometimes. And guys, go to christianwarriortraining.com. Look up what Keith has to offer. He's a good man and doing some really great work out there. So I cannot promote you enough, Keith. You're a great guy and doing great work. And so I'm a big fan. If you can't tell.
Thank you.
Fan. Any final thoughts you want to leave with everybody or?
I do.
Okay.
Pray.
What's your squirrel brain have in mind now?
Oh yeah, I know, man. It's like constantly going. So, number one, most important thing is pray for the safety of our country and for your congregation, and pray that God gives you discernment discernment to see danger before it starts and to give you the skills that you need to effectively protect the people at your church and your family. And the most important thing after that, right? That's the most important thing is prayer. But after that is remember your ABCs, always be caring.
That's right. That's a perfect tagline. Perfect way to end the show. Thank you so much for your time.
I stole that though, so I feel so bad. I stole it from my friend because he did a good job with it. He's not on YouTube anymore. I'm like, can I steal that? And he's like, go ahead. Too bad.
You asked permission. I think it's okay. I need a tagline like that. Does you guys know what tagline I should use at the end of my show? I think I need a tagline.
Ooh, put it in the comments. Think
yeah.
In the comments.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, thank you, Keith. You've been a pleasure as always.
Thank you.